we're going to hear a story. This story is about fairies. And it may be a little scary. Are y'all okay with that? It's not really scary. It's just about fairies. Okay, so there was a guy. His name was Lanty. Lanty McCluskey. He lived in a far-off place called Ireland. Ireland is a long way from here. And he lived, it was a big island. And it was very green. And it was right next to the ocean where he lived. There were big, long cliffs, and he would look down a lot and see all the water down there. But you know what? I'll tell you something about Lanty. He was a lucky, lucky guy. Let me tell you why. First of all, he lived in Ireland, which was beautiful, and he loved it. And you know what else? He had a wonderful family. They loved him very much. They had a farm where they grew all kinds of food and raised animals like sheep. And he had a nice home where he lived with his family. He was very lucky. And you know what else? He was about to marry the prettiest girl in the whole village.
Who?
Yeah, he was a lucky, lucky guy. So Lanty was happy. But something happened. Something happened that changed his luck just a little bit. Because you see, here's what happened. He was going to build a house. Because he was going to get married. He thought, I need a house for my new family. So he was going to build a house. And the place he was going to build it was in a little green circle. And people said, oh, don't build it there. Don't build it there. And he said, oh, I'm going to build it there. One day, an old man came into town. He was about this tall. He was really short. And he had a long beard. And he had a pointy hat. And he came up to Lanty and he said, you know, I wouldn't build over there if I were you. Don't build your house there. And he said, why not? And the guy said, that's where the fairies dance in the moonlight. If you build your house there... Oh, well, here's what happened. He said, if you build your house there, then the fairies will be mad at you. And he said, I don't care. They won't mind at all. They won't mind at all. So, he was a lucky guy, so everybody in the village came and helped him build a house. And one day they built a house all the way. It was a fine house. It was very beautiful. He was so lucky to have all those friends. And you know what he did that night? He threw a big party for all his friends. They brought their fiddles and flutes, and they danced, and they sang, and they had all kinds of good food like fish and lamb and all the kind of stuff they had. They had a good time. But something happened. Something happened in the night. Here's what happened. They were dancing, and they were singing, and they were playing their songs, and everybody was having a good time, and woohoo! But then all of a sudden they heard something. They heard a sound. It sounded like the whole house was shaking. And the whole house was coming down. And you know what they heard? They heard these voices outside say, come on guys, we've got to tear this house down by midnight. Oh no, Lanty said, I just built my house. What's going on? So everybody stopped playing and singing and eating. And he went outside and said, what's going on? And you know who was there? The fairies. The fairies were there, and they said, this is where we dance in the moonlight. So you can't build your house here. We have to tear it down. And he said, oh no, fairies, please. I'll tell you what, I'm such a lucky guy. And I had all my friends come out and help me build this house. So please let me at least have a party for my friends tonight so we can dance here. And then tomorrow night you can tear my house down. And they said, okay. And since you say that, we'll let you build right over there between those two trees. And he said, okay. And you know what happened? Sure enough, that night, at midnight, the fairies tore his house down. But that's not the end of the story. Because Lanty really was a lucky guy. He was a very lucky guy. So he said, you know what, I'm just going to keep on going. I've got my family. I've got a nice, I'm about to marry the most beautiful girl in the whole village, and life is good. So he went and started digging between the two trees to make a foundation. But you know what happened? He was digging, and he was digging, and all of a sudden, boom, he hit something hard. Boom. What is that under there? And he dug a little bit more, and he dug a little bit more around it. He scooped around it, scooped around it. It was a big chest. Oh no, what is it going to be? So he dug it and dug it and dug it out, and he lifted the lid. Oh, it's heavy. And you know what was inside there? The fairies knew that he should build his house there because they buried a giant chest of gold just for him, because he had agreed to let them have their place back where they danced in the moonlight. And so not only did he get to build a new house, but then he had all this money for his new family. And he said, this is what Lanty told people later. He said, when the moon was bright on a nice summer night, he could look out his window and he could see the fairies dancing in the moonlight. And when he would wave at them, they would wink at him, and they would do a magic dance just for him.